And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the Louisiana plain, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism in Louisiana, elevating the cause of constitutional conservative citizens across the state, and rapidly now draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you for inviting us to be part of your day. We are so grateful for you. You're the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for, and we are only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us. We'd really appreciate it if you'd also help us get the word out and spread the reach of the State of Freedom. Please like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips instead of the full episodes from our YouTube and Rumble channels, and links to those are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. Welcome back to the second half of our interview with Matt Meck, Tina Peters, and Juan O Savin.
Let me dive in here for 1 second. Let me just give it something that people might be able to compare to. A couple months back, I wanted a particular very rare 57 Buick convertible. It was a very unusual one, unusual color and Connie kit and all that. So there was bidding going on for it. And I'd watched the price pretty consistently because it'd been up for about 20 days, right down to the last minutes. And if you've ever bid in eBay or things like that, other people are watching. And at the last second, there was bids that came in literally with seconds to go on it before the clock stopped. I saw the bidding jump from the mid-30s to over $70,000. And so I was out. And it happened literally with like 20 seconds left in the bidding. Turned out later, by the way, that the person that was the high bidder was a false person or wasn't able to complete the deal. And then it went to down the list till it got to one of the people that was a real bidder, had the real money, and bought the vehicle for a few thousand more than I did. That kind of manipulation is what you're describing here in the vote, because what we now have with the investigation up out of Michigan into the public record is that Serbian nationals and other groups, they're not the only ones. Think of Al Capone's gang. They have a bank of the names of 50 million people here in the U.S. and addresses. So it's like counterfeit money. They have a big box of it. And at any given moment, if they need to use that counterfeit money, and there's nobody there with a marking pen to check to see if it's real and verify it before it gets used, they can throw some of that counterfeit money into any election anywhere in the country pretty quickly and rapidly, because they got this big box full of it. So you got 50 million names and addresses you could throw in to the voter record somewhere and use it like currency. It's not just restricted to one group. There's several groups that have this. That's a huge danger to the country, because you have criminal groups outside the country that can commit what really is an act of war. It's a cartel type war, because there's a question, is it a nation state that's doing it? Well, might be. Then again, is it a private cartel, a vote cartel? We got drug cartels. We got all sorts of groups are out there, but this one is dealing in votes. And by the way, if you wanted to have counterfeit money or counterfeit votes, which is more valuable? Counterfeit votes. Because if you get your person into office, they can get you all of the money, and it's not counterfeit. They can have projects diverted to you. They can get their guy into a position to decide that some company is going to get big money from arms trade and things like that. So this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. The reality is the only way this is ever going to work for us as a country at this point in time is to eliminate the variable, the machines. We need to have smaller precincts like we used to have, not these mega precincts. And then you count the votes where they're cast. There's no more transporting votes in the trunk of the police car. That's how they stole the election from Nixon up in Chicago, is they had police cars transporting votes. And then they'd stop at some corner, switch out one box, put another one in. You do the vote, it's counted where it's cast. Everybody gets to see it, totally transparent, and smaller precincts. And then when you do one day, see, part of the thing of having these long multi-day votes, nobody that's an average citizen can do that. They got kids, they got jobs, they got responsibilities. So it puts a different class of citizen in there. More often than not, somebody who's already on the government payroll gets a check for whatever reason anyway and can afford to do it, as opposed to the average citizen. One day vote. You come in, you do your civic duty, you participate at that precinct where you live, and you know all the people coming and going for the most part. Somebody knows somebody, and every person in that neighborhood that's in there with ID. One day, paper ballot, counted where cast. Have to have your ID to do it. Smaller precincts, and you're going to get the vote done same evening, piece of cake, no problem.
What about the argument that the other side makes is that the presumption of people who want the hand-marked paper ballots and to replace the machines is that there's also the possibility of fraud and manipulation in paper ballot voting as well. How do we respond to that?
Well, because when you're doing it the way that we're describing, the votes don't get secreted away. They don't get transported somewhere. Big boxes going to Central Nevada, to Las Vegas from everywhere, transported in the trucks, and who added how many boxes, and what's the magical sleight of hand. It becomes very difficult to fake those ballots when they're just in one place. You could even add security features, etc., but you're not doing drop boxes. Putin said to Tucker the other day when they were talking that the mail-in vote, in the opinion of the Russian security services, FSB, that it was the mail-in vote that stole the election from Trump to Biden. And, there's people want to use the post office to mail-in vote. Some of the most corrupt activity that we saw in the last two elections occurred out of the post office. That's moving votes all over the place. Counted where you cast the vote. Smaller precincts, not larger. That's the way we fix that.
And maybe to bring it back to the Lake Fincham case, you mentioned, Juan, that you think that the Supreme Court will likely remand it down to the lower court. What's the best case scenario for the outcome of this particular case, and what would it mean if the courts rule in their favor?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. Maybe Tina on that one.
The best case scenario? Well, the best case scenario is to find that the electronic voting systems cannot be used for the 2024 election. I mean, that's what we're hoping for. I mean, that's, we've got the Georgia case going on that still hasn't been ruled on. We have, this is important. These machines need to be shown for what they are, and that is corrupt, easily manipulated, and that they have been manipulated. So that is what this case going to the Supreme Court is all about, is to outlaw.
And there's an injunction, right? Injunctive relief, Tina. They're asking for an injunction on these machines, right? For the Supreme Court to consider that as well.
Well, and just so people know, the Georgia case is you had a group of Georgia citizens that is looking to ban the use of machines in Georgia because they are vulnerable to manipulation. And so the best part of that whole case happened a little over a month ago when the plaintiff's attorney, the people asking that the machines no longer be able to be used legally in Georgia because there's so much fraud going on. They had a Dominion machine sitting in front of the judge at her bench. And the plaintiff attorney was supposed to come up and do something, and he can't find his pen. So he walks over to the defense attorney's table and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a pen. Can I borrow yours for just a moment?" So, just a plain old Bic pen or whatever. And the defense attorney doesn't see this coming. He's just trying to be courteous with the other attorney, hands him his Bic pen. The attorney then walks up in front of the judge and to the machine and uses the pen, not his own, so it couldn't have some hidden device in it. It's not even his finger with a special way of touching it or something like that. He uses the pen and pushes down the power button on the machine and holds it down for about 9 seconds. Then he lifts it up. Now, normally, anybody else in the world, we go over, we're so used to power stuff, doink on the button. I want to start my Bentley. I push the button on the Franken start button, and I don't hold it down for 30 seconds. I push it down for a second, and I lift it up. Everybody does that. You're turning the microwave on. We just push the button down. But when you held it down for this longer period of time, when the machine turned on, instead of turning on in the normal program for counting votes and doing other stuff, it went into a different file system inside the machine. Then he just pushes, using the pen, a couple more buttons. Now, initially, the machine shows a vote count, of a fictitious person and another person, and it's like 70-30.
It was Washington and George and Benedict Arnold. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. And then he pushes, and next thing you know, the vote for one flips to the other and vice versa. And all of that occurred in a matter of seconds just by the way that he opened up or turned on the machine. So, and that was just a machine out of the system. Nobody talks about that.
Well, that was J. Alex Halderman that did that. So, and he is a professor, Democrat. He's been trying since 2017. He spoke, 2007, but he spoke before the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2017, saying to them that these machines, you need to tell Democrats and Republicans these machines are vulnerable. So his report had to do with the ICXs, so the Image Cast Central, which is it's what they use with ADA. Like we had 28 of them in my county. So this is where you go to vote if you're going to vote on a touchpad, right? So when he looked at these, he made this report that you can't have that. So that's what they were trying to outlaw, because Georgia was 100% those touchscreens. And so they wanted to go to paper ballots. And so that still hasn't been ruled on yet. As far as I know, it's Totenberg.
Chris, and if I could just go back to one thing, when I talked about those 50 million voter registration rolls, that from all indications started in about 2012. So this has been going on for almost a decade, right? And number two, you asked with paper ballots, how do they could be cheated as well? They could. First off, we're all humans. We're sinners. Humans do what humans do, sadly. But what Mark Cook would espouse, Tina has espoused, and others, is instead of using technology to increase the opaqueness of the voting process, use technology to increase the transparency of the voting process, i.e., like what they did there at Maricopa at a Republican event there, and they just did it in Arkansas. I know Mark was helping Sarah Dunklin and Jennifer Lancaster in Arkansas using cameras. And you have bipartisan watching so that you, as an average person, you can see the ballot moving through, you can see the counting. So literally the audit is built into the process, because all you got to do is go back and look at the cameras. As Mark would say, it repeats this, please use technology. We have it to increase transparency for the common voter, not increase opaqueness.
That's right. And so we're ready. I mean, because of what Linda Rance has been doing, Mark Cook, Gillespie County, I just had them on my show on Frank's Speech. They're already doing these hand counts with perfect accuracy, perfect transparency in a matter of hours. So all the arguments about using these machines go by the wayside, because ever since we started using the machines, it takes longer, it's more expensive, it's, everything that can go wrong with the machines goes wrong, right? Whereas if you have people like what Juan was saying at the precinct level, like our precincts were 1,500 to 2,000 people, that's easy to count. I think in Gillespie Pixaby County, they were counting the GOP primary, and they had 9,000 ballots, and they had it done in a few hours. So this is very, very easy. You can have the vote counted by the end of the night, accurate. You already have. I used to hire 100. We only had 115 electors, people that voted in our county, and I would hire 150 election workers. So you already have them there. You have bipartisan judges at the precincts running the voting service polling centers. Just have them do it and be done with it. But we already, so the thing of it is, there won't be the point I'm trying to make is there won't be a void if we get rid of the machines. And I'm going to say when we get rid of the machines, because I'm going to put that out there. There won't be a void because people across the country, thanks to Mike Lindell and many others that have been doing this, already know how to count them. They already know how to do the process. And Mark Cook.
Yeah. And I love the idea of having watchers, of having poll watchers. And I love the idea of using the technology to video everything that's occurring there. And I think that would go a long, long way. So that's outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a candidate, you can recount your own race. If you feel like your race wasn't counted, well, you don't have to pay like I did $255,000. I could sit there and look at the camera recording and count my own ballots. So it's very, very transparent to everyone, the candidates as well as the voter.
Yeah.
And I'd like to bring us back to the case one more time. Sorry, just so I can understand. So if the non-lawyer, if the courts rule in favor of Lake Fincham and say that there's that the machines can't be used, how far-reaching is that decision? Does it just impact Maricopa County? Does it impact all of Arizona? Will it impact all of Dominion jurisdictions? Or is it just like, if it's very focused on the Maricopa County, for instance, is it just public pressure of the realization of the outcome of that case that maybe will help us get rid of the machines in the rest of the country?
Well, let me answer that a little around from a different direction. In Louisiana right now, their machines are at the age that they need to replace them. The cost to replace these electronic voting machines is huge. I think they said $80 million.
$100 million.
And then you have to service those machines, and they're good for about a decade. So the state's being committed to a very expensive voting system for a long time. And of course, then the pressure is if they did decide to go to paper or something down the road, we didn't get our full value for what we paid for. We paid all this money for these things. We got to keep going. The reality is that the system with the cameras and the hand count paper ballots is pretty simple. In Louisiana, they did it with a system called the Cajun clothesline. We think there's a little simpler system with what Mark Cook has put together that I personally like better, but I don't care. There's similar systems that can be used using the paper ballot. It's all done in the open. There's no secret boxes or something like that. You have multiple people counting the same ballot, and then you compare each of the totals each of them have out of a batch of ballots, let's say 100. And if they're off by one vote, the whole batch gets recounted again. So it's very transparent. That's why Tina was saying, she has a problem, and that's all put online. Anybody can go count it. You don't have to hire somebody to go do the count. You could go online and look at your own ballots counted throughout the precincts in your district and have an answer pretty quickly. If you're doing a statewide race like a governor, you might have 100 volunteers that go through, various places, or 1,000, and they recheck what the vote was at each and every precinct to verify it, and it's right there out in the open. And that's really the key here, is that instead of spending $100 million plus on equipment that is vulnerable, you could do this. The cameras they're using are really very inexpensive, relatively state of the art, but inexpensive, and they'll last way more than 10 years. If you get right down to it, they're doing a simple task. Even if you had to replace them after 10 years, you might spend $1 million or $2 million to do the same low-tech version of a vote count that will actually get done way, way, way faster with total reliability, not better reliability, total reliability on the legitimacy of the count. And you eliminate the magician's hat trick option because you take away the hat and the magic wand and all the little tools that they've been using to manipulate the vote count. We don't need this magic act anymore. Straightforward,
And Juan,
logical. Go ahead.
I'm not sure you know this, but Chris and I are in Louisiana, and we're close to some of the folks who have brought the Cajun clothesline and have been pushing for some time for the move to paper ballots. And I guess why I keep coming back to how far-reaching will the decision be is because I'm not sure what it's going to take for our state to be able to be willing to switch off of the machines. The Secretary of State and the establishment parts of the Republican Party in our state have really dug their heels in on this. And Chris, you can chime in on this. So I'm not sure if just public pressure will be enough for her to stand down and say, you know what, let's go to paper ballots. I would like if the machines got 100% outlawed countrywide, and then that would do the trick for us.
Well, let me just add this one thing. If you're gonna try to get a corner on, for example, Louisiana wants everybody in the country to use the Cajun clothesline. Why? Because they, maybe somebody owns the factory on the clothespins, and they just want everybody using their clothespins. Look, there's no money in it. That's the real issue.
Exactly.
If you have who gets the contract, who's the contractor, who's their brother-in-law, what you really have is you have Republicans, and I'll say this is top to bottom. It's very distressing. It really grinds on me. You have Republicans saying that we just have to do the system better than Democrats. So whatever they're doing, we just have to do it better. So if they're using machines, we need better machines. If they're using, manipulation through an early vote or getting early voters and ballot harvesting and like that, we just have to do it better. No, we do not need to learn their system of cheating. I don't have to read the devil's Bible and know it verse by verse to cheat against the devil. I just have to know God's word better and the right way. The right way to do this is the honest way to do this is with the hand count paper ballot, counted where cast, with ID, 1 day vote. And let the citizens do this cheap, simple, straightforward. And if you're going to get somebody, let's go all invest in clothesline companies. You want a government manufacturing clothesline company? Give me a break. It's just cameras. It couldn't be simpler, and they last for a very long time. There's no money, no great deal of money to be made here because it's a fraction. It's like I had a friend years and years ago who bought out all of the dies, all of the equipment to manufacture the P-51 aircraft as they were transitioning out of propeller aircraft to jets. And he went and proved that he could build about 15 of these things for the cost of these early jets. And for ground attack and ground support, they were way more effective. They were more maneuverable. They were easier to maintain. They had better distances they could go, all sorts of things. But they were in a jet age, and everybody wanted these jets to do all of the work. It wasn't the way that these guys wanted to do it. Didn't have the big money involved. And he was trying to be more cost effective for particular types of applications and more truly effective because he knew what it was like to, he'd had a relative that was killed in action on the ground because support just, took too long. Jets go fast. They have to drive big circles at that time. He had a better way to do it, but it didn't fit somebody's mentality because it wasn't going to drive the big money for all the contractors. And they couldn't have all of their girlfriends and revolving door to go out of their service jobs into the private sector and make a bunch of money after they'd finished their service. There's no money in the Cajun clothesline as far as these guys are concerned, and they want an answer that gives them big money.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping, that helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
So we have a situation here where we could, and you really are getting right to the bottom, Juan, of increasing discrepancy between the establishment at the top of both parties, and it's just not Democrats, and the American citizens, in our case, Louisiana citizens, where instead of the leadership looking for opportunities to save taxpayer money and to be more judicious in the way that taxpayer money is spent, they actually oppose programs and ideas that do just that. And they want the programs and the ideas that involve the greatest expenditure of taxpayer money. And I can't think of any, it's just amazing to me.
That's interesting that you should say that, because having had a business for 32 years before I went into government, I went in there trying to save money and trying to be more efficient. And I opened 2 extra offices. I alleviated the 3.5-hour wait times. I was always within budget. I gave my people raises, and I always stayed within budget. But what I learned, and this is the way government is run, which just totally blew my mind, is if you don't use the money they give you, the next year, you're going to get less. And it's not like we're used to as Americans, where you save for a rainy day. They expend and they expend, and they ask for more to expend, which is really messed up. But let me go back to what Danielle said, because this is going to affect more than just Arizona. And in the writ of a certiorari, it states that the fundamental right to vote is the preservative of all rights, and only this court, the Supreme Court, can secure that right. So it talks about the political franchise of voting as it's a fundamental political right because it's preservative of all rights. And they quote, or they reference Yick Wo versus Hopkins, 118 U.S. 356 and 370. And it says, as Madison explained at the Constitutional Convention, quote, the qualification of electors and elected are fundamental articles in a Republican government and ought to be fixed by the Constitution. And if the legislature could regulate those of either, it can by degrees subvert the Constitution. And then it gives Oregon versus Mitchell, and it goes on, but it says, while this case concerns only Arizona, the new evidence that petitioners have uncovered extends to the approximately 30 states that use Dominion voting systems. This judiciary is the only branch of government that can resolve this matter. So Danielle, in talking about would this just be Arizona, no, it's going to go further. If the results of elections in approximately 30 states are unreliable, the political branch's lawful composition circa January 3rd, 2025 is unknowable. So the point of all this is that, we have to understand, and the court is being called to understand, that what has been done in the past by these election machines, in specific Dominion, because of what we've been able to find in these diamond in the mountain of sand data, is these machines cannot be trusted, and therefore it's not just Arizona, but it's any state that in this case uses Dominion voting machines. And I think that they're also going to be able to show that it's not just Dominion, it's Smartmatic, because the guts of this, they have different vendors, but it's the same chassis, right? So in answer to your question, Danielle, it is going to go further than just Arizona.
the implications could absolutely be far-reaching.
Chris, if talking to Randy Russ and John Scanlon and Kathy Willis, they're on our calls on Fridays. I understand the structure in Louisiana, where instead of like in other parts of the country, you have to kind of fight parish by parish or county by county to go to a paper hand count. You have as John would say, the beauty of or the curse of Louisiana is a top-down system. The beauty of it's a top-down system. If you had forward thinkers and like Governor Landry and your maybe if you got a call from President Trump, perhaps you could be that monumental case where instead of a county going to paper hand count precinct level, it's a whole state, and that would think. And I think what I don't think they realize is, don't play to your donors and your masters and your controllers. Play to your people, your citizens who are yearning for this. You would already probably secure your reelection right now.
That's a great point. Speaking, let's switch gears for a second here. I want to ask y'all, you first, Matt. What are your thoughts on the new RNC leadership, Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, and what does this mean for our party and for election integrity? What are your thoughts?
Let me add one more thing, and I sent you guys an article. It's about entitled "How I Hacked the Dutch Government," and it's exactly like we're talking about: remote code execution, and he hacked the entire Dutch government. That is how vulnerable our reliance on technology can be. So just take a look at that article. But I think it's good, and that there's change there, and which was needed. I know, a lot of folks I know in North Carolina weren't that on board with Whatley as the RNC chair. They loved Laura being there, Laura Trump. So and she had some effect, right? This last weekend, the RNC had its largest digital raise of funds over a weekend, the most since 2020. So people are seeing a change. I think more has to happen. But what concerns me, the singular thing that concerns me, with Laura saying bank your vote and Scott Pressler being hired now to do this, not that they're bad people, but they're looking at it from a political science perspective. And I wish to God Laura would hire a Joel Altman, a Professor Clements, a Pat Colbeck, a Jeff O'Donnell, a Mark Cook, and understand the technical aspects of this and how voting early, it's not... Banking the vote is not Louisiana football. I'll go back to that. We're not in the early eons of football where, oh my God, someone just invented the forward pass, and if we don't comply, we're going to get our butts kicked, right? No. Like in the words of Flynn to me previously, it's an ambush. Why would you want to come into enemy territory? You don't want to fight them in the battlefield they know best. We're being lured into something. I think a lot of the technical experts will agree that is going to not allow us to win. It's going to compromise us at best. It's going to ensure losses at worst. So I like other aspects of them, and I like the new direction in general. But this particular thing of early voting, count the vote, I think is a fatal flaw.
What do you think about the hiring of Christina Bobb? That bodes well for me, having her at the helm for the election fraud division.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. And, she was a former, and I'll go right to Tina from this, is that, she's a former Marine Corps JAG officer. She worked for DHS. She worked for Mark Morgan when she went to DHS there. And then I first met her personally when she had first got to OAN. And I was talking to her in the green room of OAN September of 2020. We're talking about Fast and Furious, the illegal gun operation, and how that was going to be the focus of OAN once Trump won his second term, right? So I got to know her there. We have kept in communication. I always invite her to the Friday calls if she can make it. So yeah, she's a pit bull, and I think it's good. I hope, and I think she knows Mark Cook and others. I hope to God she reaches out to Mark Cook and others to balance this equation at the RNC.
I agree.
Do you think she understands, Matt? Tina, do you think that she understands the issues with the vulnerability of the machines?
I'm a big collaborator. When I was in business and then also as clerk, I didn't need to know all the answers, but I need to know how to put in good people. And even Trump admits, I just saw a recent interview with him, and he admits that coming into Washington, there were a lot of people that he chose unwisely because he didn't know the depth of depravity of the deep state. But I think if she can surround herself, and I think Matt was right on with that, with people like Mark Cook, Sean Smith, Pat Colbeck, these people that have been in this fight personally for the last 4 years or longer, then she will be very successful. But she needs those cyber experts, the people that know this stuff. And I don't think she knows it like they do.
Yeah, and hopefully that can have a resonating effect going forward on the states, because as Danielle alluded to a little while ago, the top Republican brass in Louisiana now does not seem to be very receptive. There's no question that they should understand the vulnerabilities of the machine. And on some level, they probably do. I mean, we had Alex Haldeman testify in front of our voting system commission here and could not have been more clear about the acute vulnerabilities of these ballot marking devices that we have here. I mean, he was devastating. And yet the institutional bureaucracy here has been really blind or completely unreceptive to it. And so hopefully, if on the national level it gets traction and they begin to address the issue, then hopefully that would have an effect here in Louisiana. I want to ask you this, Matt, though, because and I wanted to ask it a little while ago and I forgot. If you were, what would you suggest here in Louisiana that we do or needs to be done in order to convince our Secretary of State, who seems to be on the verge of investing $100 million of our tax money into new machines? What would you suggest needs to be done in order to convince her not to do that?
Well, I'll answer that, and I would also suggest go to Juan afterwards. I know he was at Mar-a-Lago last week and a half ago, talking to some of the folks in Trump world on this particular issue and others. Here's two things I would suggest, and I'm not from Louisiana. I love the state. I love the food and the music. Is one on Truth Social, because I know Trump. I've been told by many Trump reads on his Truth Social account. Have your folks respectfully ask President Trump to have a call with Governor Landry as to why he could be monumental in going to all paper ballots, the first state in the nation. I think your citizens asking the president to call your governor would have an impact. I know they're close, and I would imagine a call from President Trump saying, "Hey, would you please do this for me or consider this?" I think that would be powerful. And number two, something Professor Clements always advises us, is just don't go in tens, but go in respectfully, orderly, peacefully. Go in hundreds, if not thousands, to your county offices and say, we the people demand paper ballots. We the people demand in-person voting. They have to hear your numbers. In politics, two things have impact: dollars and numbers. We the people collectively have the dollars, but not focused like the donors do. But we have the numbers. Show up in numbers, again, peacefully, respectfully, lawfully, and let them know loud and clear what you want as citizens.
That's what changed my mind, Matt. You're right on. It was the citizens that were unrelenting. They just came and sent me videos and just emails and asked to get to meet with me. Matt, you're right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Let me just say this. Let's do a fly-off. Okay, you have different companies that'll build a fighter, and then they'll have a competition where they test one against the other in various scenarios. And by the way, the guy with the P-51, he beat the Jets every time. There wasn't even a single scenario where he didn't beat them when they did some fly-off challenges. The situation here, you fill a basketball arena and do a test ballot precinct or whatever with the paper ballots. Look at the cost. Look at the number of workers. Look at the technicians needed to set up and stand by and all the stuff. Put the cameras in place, etc. And compare that with the machine, the technicians, the pre-vote logic and accuracy, all of the various things to certify the vote, then the actual vote, and then do a cost analysis. And you're going to find out it's 100 to 1, probably more, if you factor in every last thing. And then ask the citizens, well, which would you rather have? Untrustworthy, unreliable, electronic, that a power outage, a sunspot, somebody calling in with the flu one day could throw it off, or the paper ballot, and if there's a problem, the power goes out. Okay, did anybody bring a flashlight?
Yeah.
You know,
And a lot cheaper.
1% of the cost of the machines. If it was 10%, it's still cheaper. Come on, why do we have to waste money getting a lousy job? Let's stop it.
Yeah.
Plus, it goes to the people of the community. It go instead of to a vendor, millions of dollars to a vendor. It goes to pay the people of the county, of the precinct.
And Juan, you answered the question earlier. Juan, you answered the question earlier. Why? And the answer is it's quite nefarious. It's because of all of the people who are benefiting from the big contract.
And I would ask, Chris, having been in government acquisition, competition, right? Juan just kind of talked about it. And what the fallacy is, they're limiting competition between maybe Smart, Hart InterCivic, ES&S, and Dominion. Why not competition between a paper hand count and a machine? If you want to do complete, full, and fair open competition, that's what you need to do. And you want best value, not always the lowest cost, but best value. And I say best value. And remember, I think you had Mac Warner on, and boy, what a great, the only Secretary of State that I've seen, except for maybe Chuck Gray in Wyoming, actually speaking up with intestinal fortitude. And he said it's what's happening to our voting system and voting in general is akin to Brown versus Board of Education at Topeka. The argument was it was only segregation there. We're only separate but equal there, so it's going to be fine. When I got to the Supreme Court said, no, what this is doing, it's affecting the trust of the education process of the country writ large, not just there in Topeka. So it became a national ruling, right? You can't have separate but equal in the educational system. Same thing here. These actions by our officials are causing an undermining of confidence. It is not us doing that. It is their actions, not listening to the citizens, keeping an opaque system. The citizens are losing confidence in the election process.
Well, let me just give a little sideways example here again. When I was growing up, there was a church bus, and the church council got very upset because for the youth group, this bus was costing a fortune to be maintained and transported back and forth, and they had an older bus, and it was just a pain in the neck, and somebody was trying to sell them one that was 10 times as expensive and all new, and there wasn't a budget for that. And so the youth leader went to the dads of a couple of the kids in the youth group who did mechanic stuff and work stuff in a trucking company in the area, and convinced them. These are people that had never participated. The kids went to the youth group, but they weren't participants themselves, and asked them if they could maybe work together to do this engine replacement that really was what was needed and what it would do. And they finally said, no, you really need an engine transmission. It needs to be this and this and this. These guys got involved, and there was about 10 guys that all weighed in different directions, including the brake and suspension system. But they were from that church. They were the parents of these kids. And in the course of getting the bus working right, which they had to kind of set it aside for about 4 months to go through everything, they became vested. They're the guys that became the drivers when things wanted to go places and became very involved in this indirect way in operations within the church. And I remember talking with one of the guys 20 years later, And he said, if I had never been approached by that youth leader to assist, I've never darkened the door to the church. The kids would have went, wife went, and all that. It kind of got me involved. And once I got in there and knew a couple of the other guys in something where I felt comfortable, because I never felt comfortable around that church stuff, it changed my life, changed everything about me. What we're trying to do is get the voters involved in their own precincts in this hand count, in this paper ballot, back the way it used to be, with some civic attention. And that's the beauty of it. It's not some vendor. It's not some outside, mysterious group, and we just show up and we cast our vote, and who knows what happens. I can't figure it out. I don't know. This is part of owning your community and being involved. It's a beautiful thing. You do this way, we're back to what got America going in the first place.
That's awesome, Juan.
Yes, especially when we're talking about something that is so fundamental. And as Tina mentioned a little while ago and alluded to, the right to vote. I mean, it's like what everything else is subordinate to the right to both vote and know that our vote accurately reflects our intent. Well, I want to thank all three of you for being with us today, and for all of the work that y'all are doing in order to secure our election system in the United States. And I don't think that, Danielle, I don't know about you, but I don't think it's possible to have three greater patriots on the state of freedom today than the ones we have.
No, absolutely. What a rich conversation. And just thanks for the generosity of your time and insights and wisdom. We will be getting on Truth Social, Matt, and putting out the word to President Trump there to reach out to Governor Landry. That's my number one action item. And we will be doing a call to action on that at the end of the show. So you can count on that. What's the best way to get in touch with each of you? Tina, we know you're tinapeters.us, and you have a show as well?
I do have a show on Frank's Speech right before Bannon every day, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm on right before Steve Bannon on Frank's Speech, and then of course my website tinapeters.us, and I'm on at Real Tina Peters X and Truth Social and all those. So you can go, but the easiest way to get hold of me is tinapeters.us. People can email me and my team. Yeah. And we'll just keep fighting. I'm looking forward to this Supreme Court case. I think it's going to have far-reaching and imminent results.
I think so too. Juan, how about you? How can people follow you?
Well, I don't really do my own channel or anything. We do have my wife, Jen. We're newlyweds. We've been married just over a year now. She has her store, thejennifermack.com. And she's got some fun stuff over there, our Megador jackets and coin and some other fun things. If you saw Roseanne at the Trump rallies with the Megador jacket that President Trump signed, that went at auction for $25,000 there at one of the auctions. But that's a lot of fun stuff. But I'm so busy I wouldn't be able to do a show regularly. Matt knows. Matt's my chief of staff over there. We got stuff at Unauthorized, and Matt, you can introduce folks over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, Danielle, all else fails, if folks can contact me. They can get me up, Matt, at unauthorized.one. Unauthorized.one is the 501c4 that generated out of the coalition we're in. Fincham started his C3, Election Fairness Institute. And our motto is, I think we were on your show before, it's unapologetic, unestablishment, unpolitician.
I love that.
I like that. I like it. Well, God bless all of you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And we're going to keep you in our prayers. And we all know that the fervent prayers of righteous people availeth much. So let's keep praying for each other, and God bless you all.
And go throw some cabbage.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Is that what you do on St. Patrick's Day? You throw cabbage?
There's a parade where they throw cabbage and potatoes and carrots, everything you need for a good vegetable soup, a good Irish soup. Yeah.
I just hope my wife doesn't think about it, because if she realizes it's St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, she'll be wanting to feed me more of that green juice. Oh my God. Just give me my coffee. I don't want green anything, man.
Yes. All right. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to The State of Freedom, LLC at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.